The story of Adolf Hitler begins in the quiet Austrian town of Braunau am Inn on April 20th, 1889. Born to Alois, a stern customs officer, and Clara, a devoted mother, Hitler grew up in a household of discipline and frequent conflict. From an early age, he displayed a restless temperament, clashing with his father, retreating into daydreams, and showing an intense interest in art and history. His dream was not war, not politics, but painting. Twice he applied to the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Twice he was rejected. Those failures, combined with years of poverty, hardened him and deepened his resentment toward the world. By his 20s, Vienna was shaping him in darker ways. Living in cheap hostels, he absorbed radical nationalist and antisemitic ideas that were spreading through the city. He sketched postcards to survive, but his ambitions withered. When war broke out in 1914, Hitler found his purpose. He enlisted in the German army, serving as a dispatch runner in the First World War. Though often behind the front, he endured gas attacks, shell fire, and the loss of countless comrades. He was wounded, decorated for bravery, and when Germany surrendered in 1918, he, like millions of others, felt betrayed. The Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany of land, pride, and power. For Hitler, that humiliation never faded. After the war, Hitler remained in the army, where his fiery speeches caught the attention of superiors. He was assigned to infiltrate a small nationalist group in Munich, the German Workers' Party. Instead of dismantling it, he joined. Soon he was its star speaker, transforming it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. His oratory was magnetic. He spoke with passion, fury, and vision, convincing many that Germany could rise again if it cast out its enemies and followed a new path. In 1923, emboldened by growing support, Hitler and his allies attempted a coup in Munich, the Beer Hall Putsch. It failed. 16 Nazis were killed. Hitler was arrested, tried for treason, and sentenced to prison. Behind bars, he dictated Mein Kampf, part autobiography, part political blueprint. It laid out his obsessions, German expansion, racial hierarchy, and hatred of Jews. Few read it at the time, but it would become the manifesto of catastrophe. Released after less than a year, Hitler rebuilt. The Nazis remained fringe through the 1920s, mocked by many. But the Great Depression of 1929 changed everything. Millions unemployed, banks collapsed, faith in democracy crumbled. Hitler promised order, jobs, and restored greatness. His message found fertile ground. By 1932, the Nazis were the largest party in the Reichstag. In January 1933, under pressure and intrigue, President Hindenburg appointed Hitler Chancellor of Germany. Once in power, Hitler moved swiftly. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 allowed him to crush civil liberties. The Enabling Act gave him dictatorial authority. Political opponents were arrested or killed. Trade unions dissolved. Regional states centralized. By 1934, after the purge of rivals in the Night of the Long Knives, Hitler declared himself Führer, leader of Germany. The army swore personal loyalty, not to the nation, but to him. Hitler's rule reshaped Germany with terrifying speed. Propaganda filled every corner of life. The swastika replaced old symbols. Youth organizations trained children to follow the party. The Gestapo spread fear. Jews were excluded from professions, then from citizenship, then from society itself. The Nuremberg laws of 1935 stripped them of rights. Violence escalated. Kristallnacht in 1938 shattered windows, synagogues, and lives across Germany. What began as discrimination spiraled toward annihilation. Meanwhile, Hitler pursued expansion. He defied Versailles openly, rearming the military and remilitarizing the Rhineland. Europe protested, but did nothing. In 1938, he annexed Austria in the Anschluss, welcomed by cheering crowds. Then came the Sudetenland, carved from Czechoslovakia after the Munich Agreement, a deal meant to secure peace. Months later, Hitler seized the rest of Czechoslovakia anyway. His ambitions were clear: domination of Europe. On September 1st, 1939, German troops stormed into Poland. Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. Blitzkrieg, lightning war, became Hitler's weapon. Fast, mechanized, devastating. Poland fell in weeks. Norway, Denmark, the Low Countries, and France followed in rapid succession. By 1940, Hitler stood at the height of his power, yet Britain refused to surrender. His Luftwaffe rained bombs on London, but the island held. In June 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. It was the largest military operation in history, and at first it swept forward with brutal success. Millions of Soviet soldiers were captured, cities fell, but the vastness of Russia, the ferocity of resistance, and the punishing winter turned triumph into disaster. By 1942-43, at Stalingrad, the tide shifted. An entire German army was encircled and destroyed. Behind the front, the Nazi regime unleashed its most horrific crime, the Holocaust. What began as persecution escalated into systematic mass murder. 6 million Jews, along with Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, and countless others were killed in ghettos, shooting fields, and extermination camps. It remains one of history's darkest chapters. As the war dragged on, Hitler's gamble unraveled. The United States entered the conflict after Pearl Harbor, bringing its industrial might to the Allies. In North Africa, the Germans were pushed back. In Italy, Mussolini fell. By 1944, Allied armies landed in Normandy on D-Day, opening a Western front. Soviet forces pressed from the east. Germany was squeezed, bombed, collapsing. Inside his Berlin bunker in 1945, Hitler was a shadow of the man who once commanded stadiums of adoring followers. The 1,000-year Reich had barely lasted 12. As Soviet troops closed in, Hitler ranted at his generals, shuffled imaginary armies across maps, and refused to accept reality. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler took his own life with a pistol shot to the head. Days later, Germany surrendered. His life had begun in obscurity, fueled by rejection and resentment, transformed by war into radicalism, lifted by crisis into power, and ended in destruction. He left behind a broken continent, tens of millions of dead, and the legacy of hatred and devastation that scars humanity to this day. Hitler's story is one of warning. It shows how a single life, bent by failure and fanaticism, can hijack nations, weaponize fear, and drag the world into catastrophe. And though his empire crumbled, the memory of what he unleashed endures, teaching each generation to remain vigilant against the echoes of tyranny.